And the thing that beats parries is a high-low mix-up because you have to choose a parrying direction. Except the parrying direction is harder because there are a lot of attacks that you can parry both. Like you can only parry one way, but you can block it either way. Like if I'm Oro and I do stand medium kick, you can parry that high only, but you can block it low or high. So it's a lot safer to block, but also you lose the ability to punish. Stand medium kick is safe, but it becomes unsafe with a parry. Um, and like throws, it's like if you're expecting if you can't like use a parry and then also dodge a throw, you're committing that if they throw you, you're gonna get thrown in order to attempt to utilize a parry. And that's not so true full screen, but also pokes aren't so like pokes don't have a mix up full screen. I shouldn't say full screen, but further outside throw range. So there's really no situation they should work in either game. And it's like if they do work, that's great, but they also like mindless poking is carries more inherent risk in third strike because there is an option to shut it down. And then like parries like because parries and blocking hold the same position, they literally have the same function. It's just that parrying is harder to do, but more rewarding. And of course, there are plenty of things you can block that you already get equal reward. It's like parrying a Shoryuken and blocking a Shoryuken, you get the same punish. So it's like very specific things that parrying, not very specific, but like parrying doesn't always give you a punish like people always think it does. And there's a lot of ways you can make the opponent think that they can go for a parry and then fuck them up for attempting it. And not just in terms of like not just in terms of like how do I say this? Making them like throwing them or like doing a high low. There's like a lot of other ways too because you have to guess how many parries you're going to need to do. And sometimes there's not a mix up there and sometimes there is. Depends on what character you're playing. Like oftentimes you'll see like a Ryu just do like stand strong like on meaty, like on wake up, and then the opponent will parry and try and go for like a throw or like a stand fierce or something like that, and the Ryu will just cancel the stand strong into like an uppercut, and then that would be super unsafe to just do stand strong cancel to uppercut, but it punishes people who are going for parries, who are fishing for parries. And it makes it so that you really don't want to parry knowing that your opponent's doing that because you really want to be able to punish a Shoryuken. And seeing the opponent take risks like that very much motivates you to try and punish those risks. It's like super rewarding. It very much dissuades parrying. It beats parries really badly. It's really unsafe to do wake up multiple parries. I shouldn't say it's really unsafe, but like it can throw away your punish opportunities. It's a pretty thoughtful situation. There's a lot of different things that can happen. It's not just like either I can parry and he attacks, or I could like not parry and he attacks, or something like that. It's not like just a 50-50. Everyone always tries to sell like a 50. It's not even like a 33, 33, 33. It's actually really complex. There isn't an audience for 2D fighting games anymore simply because even people who would most likely buy it don't understand the principles of the genre and what makes the games tick. Like we've discovered this 100 plus post thread, even the most basic element of 2D fighting mind games is something that almost nobody here understands on anything other than an elementary level. I genuinely think that he's the one who doesn't understand. I think that he has an opinion about what mind games are, but he's missing a bigger picture in which they're always present. And he doesn't have the context knowledge in Third Strike to know where they're present in Third Strike. If you can't understand the difference between sophisticated mind games and basic ones, how are you going to understand what makes a good fighting game? Once you understand that it is a mix-up, the mind game is kind of out the window, I feel like. Like, once you understand what the risk and reward is, you can have an optimal ratio of doing, like, one or the other. And the best possible thing the opponent can do about that is have their own optimal ratio. It's not like they know that you're going to do, like, a Shoryuken 10% of the time and they're going to block, like, 100% of the time, or even 0% of the time. Like, both of those, like, are lost opportunities. Either they're blocking when they don't need to because you're not sure you're getting that much, or they're like pressuring you way too much and like risking eating every shore you can. Let's say if you get like, if you take 10 times the damage for having a Shoryuken blocked as blocking as hitting the opponent with one. Like once both players know it's a coin flip, like strategy, like the actual like making the opponent do something is like a pretend thing that everyone acts like is a real thing. People are unpredictable. Maybe not like super unpredictable. Like maybe like some person will just like in a panic always go to Shoryukens or something like that. But like we shouldn't glorify that. Like it's like oh my God, this guy's a mind reader. He's not a mind reader. He just has a better understanding of what people usually do. That's where the skill comes in. There's no actual mind reading. There's no actual like baiting the opponent to do something so much as there is like I mean there is, but like, if they know that if your opponent knows that they're trying to be baited, it doesn't mean anything that they're trying to be baited. Does that make any sense? There's a way that I could phrase that would make a lot more sense. Once one person knows that the correct option is to be random, there's no thought to it more than that. They just know to be random. There's no baiting someone who just knows that the correct answer is to be inconsistent, but inconsistent in such a way that they're always doing, a good ratio of like risk to reward. And that you can see that in every fighting game when you see like the best players of those fighting games. They just like don't take the risks unless like they only take the risks as much as is prudent. And they still take damage because they don't guess right 100% of the time. They just guess right like um they just have more situations where they guess right because they're better at like creating those situations, which is where the actual skill of fighting games is. Something super patrician about this whole post that just makes me hate it. Huge problem with threads like this. Parry defenders are basically saying this to death. The thing about the thing that shuts down this entire argument is he's saying that the mix-up is too simple. Like, and what? And what? Literally, and what? The mix-up is simple, and what? Is he trying to say that makes the game more random? Like, you still see very consistent winners in Third Strike. It goes back and forth less than ST does. I feel like ST even players of like the game, the high damage and like the quick rounds of ST just mean that like there's an explosive degree of anything can happen. And you still see consistent winners in ST, but it's very random. And Third Strike is a little random too. Any game with mix-ups is random, and the way to reduce that randomness is just to make it so more mix-ups like make a winner, which is the design process that Street Fighter 4 took, and that's why Street Fighter 4 has much more consistent winners than ST and Third Strike did. All this has to do with 2D history. I find that the most fervent parry defenders are the people who either weren't around during the heyday of 2D fighting games or were never really upper level enough to understand the depth. The reason that 2D fighting was such a successful genre. I feel like it's Viscant versus everyone here. I mean, I know a lot of people didn't like Third Strike. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of them didn't like it because they didn't want to learn to parry. Not so much that they thought parries ruined the game. Parries like fixed a lot of things that people hated about ST, which is one of the reasons they were introduced in the first place. It's like, okay, now every character has a simple solution to fireballs, which completely like makes it so fireball you have to be a lot more careful and thoughtful about your fireballs. That was like the purpose of parries being invented, and they kind of controlled fireballs a little too well because people don't throw that many fireballs. It's not they don't throw any, but they throw less. You still see fireball throwing from every single character who has one. You still see a lot of air fireballs from Akumi. You still see a lot of anti-air fireballs from Oro and Urian. It's not like they're gone. It's just that they're more specific. You still see a shit ton of fireballs from Remy. Am I supposed to argue this if people not only don't understand the advanced part? I haven't read these in like years, these posts, but I actively refuse to acknowledge its existence. I want people to answer these questions. Agree or disagree? Parry reduces the variety of character types available in the game. Maybe. Maybe. I kind of agree with that. But I think the character types that were removed were kind of obnoxious. So I never really cared about that, but I could understand why someone would care about that. Parry reduces the level of mind games. No, I do not agree with that. Parry is a good thing for game balance. Use examples from new generation, second impact, third strike, and CVS2 all P groove. Parry's good and bad for game balance. Parry limits the greatness of a character. It can't be a single thing that's broken for a character to be broken in a game with parries. That's the brilliance of parries. Okay, that's the actual thing that they do. That's the good thing about parries, is that parries embrace a situation where you can't have the entire game of third strike. You can't have one good thing and succeed. A single good tool is not strong enough. You have to have a pair of good tools with mutually exclusive answers. And all of the good characters have such a pair of tools. A character is weighed not based on their like strengths, but on their mix-ups. If you want to see a character who's weighed on a single good tool, you can take a look at fucking Old Sagat. Old Sagat's a really good example of that. Old Sagat he does have like a good invincible anti-airs and like a bunch of like useful things. It's not like Tiger Knee is useless. He actually has a lot of cool tools, but he only needs one good tool to shut down half the cast. And that cannot happen in third strike. You can't just have a good fireball and be good. You can't have a good throw and be good. You can't have a good... Because people can always do the counter to those things. And there can't be a move with no counter in third strike's engine. That's what parries do. There are no moves with counters. With no counters. And so the characters that are really strong because they have a good mix-up. Like Chun-Li has a really good mix-up between low medium kick super and Kara throw. And the thing about that mix-up that makes it so good is that parry only works against one of the options and loses to the other one. And that's an oversight of parries, I guess, is that they're still subjected. It's not an oversight because like that still happens in other games. It's just that it has to. It's like a check and balance in third strike. That's not true in any other fighting game. Like in Championship Edition is the clearest example of this. ST is actually not that bad compared to some other fighting games in this regard. But Championship Edition, Bison can literally win with only Psycho Crushers. It's like 100% safe. Like it creates a 50-50 every time you land it. It does crazy chip damage. Or like Bison Scissor Kick, Championship Edition. Anyone ever play Championship Edition? Bison Scissor Kick was safe, and a true block string into... It wasn't a true block string, but like characters that didn't have reversals couldn't get out. Was a true... It was frame advantage. And you could link... you couldn't actually link, but you could land like crouch strong after it. And no normal was fast enough to interrupt that crouch strong. And that crouch strong could link to another crouch strong, and that it wasn't a true link, but no normal could interrupt it. And then that second crouch strong, you had charge for the scissor kick, and then you could do the scissor kick. And you could just literally repeat that forever on some characters. You could just do low strong, scissor kick, low strong, scissor kick. And if they didn't have reversal, they literally could not get out. Like they would just, like as soon as you landed one low strong, like you could not have that in the third strike engine. Because as soon as you had like the good low strong and the good scissor kick, some people would be fishing for parries. So Bison, even if he had like even if CE Bison just teleported into third strike, he wouldn't necessarily be broken. Because like you know, he would need something else that like beat the people who are trying to parry his low strong. I don't know why that took me so long to formulate in my head. And what's kind of glorious about that, well, the whole point of this is that even though it's not like you can't have something broken in third strike, it's just that there's an additional requirement for something to be broken in third strike. That doesn't make third strike like immune to poor balance. It has like not great balance. It had good balance at the time. It was one of the more balanced fighting games at the time it was released, but hotfixes have just made everything so difficult to compete. Um, and just more elaborate knowledge of how fighting games like should be balanced. Excuse me. But like it's parries don't like remove game balance in any sort of way. The only ways parries can remove game balance is if some characters have moves that can be parried on reaction and some characters have like no moves that can be parried on reaction. And I'm not gonna say that's not true for Third Strike, but it's really only true for like two characters in Third Strike. You can't easily like parry like most attacks in the game on reaction. And the ones you can parry easily on reaction are not necessarily confined to the bottom tiers. Like, yeah, Hugo, half his normals are rendered obsolete because you can parry them on reaction. That sucks for Hugo. It's not like Hugo would be a great character if you couldn't parry those moves because a lot of them are unsafe anyway. Hugo maybe wasn't balanced as well as probably he could have been, but not necessarily because of parries. In fact, like parries help Hugo more than they hurt him because he gets a lot more damage off of parries than his opponents do. And also, like his big hitbox means that if parries are removed, he would have no defense instead of a small defense against a lot of setups such as EX Tatsu cross-ups from Ken. Some characters benefit more from parries than others. That's the biggest example I can find to agree with this. That parries are not a good thing. His argument, I'm saying. If I'm going to agree with his argument that parries are not good for balance, then the best example is parries help some characters more than others. That's the inherent, like, that's what he's saying. When he's saying parries are bad for balance, he's saying they help some characters more than others. And the characters they help are not consistently grapplers, and they're not consistently characters with reactable attacks. The actual characters that parries help more than others are characters with higher damage output, the ones who can hurt you more from a parry, and that's also not consistent with tier. If Chun-Li gets a parry and she doesn't have super bar, she gets like a poke. I'm dead serious. She gets a poke. She doesn't have charge if she just landed a parry. She can't easily cancel into any special move. She doesn't have a like what the fuck can Chun-Li do? She gets a throw. Chun-Li has really garbage follow-ups for a parry. Maybe if it's a really good Chun-Li, he can get like a lightning legs punish, but that doesn't even do that much damage, and it's insanely hard to do. Chun-Li doesn't have any functional cancels in Third Strike. And then you have other low tier characters who have really garbage follow-ups or parries. Like you have 12 who gets a parry and gets nothing. But then you have characters like Sean or Hugo who actually get pretty good damage after a parry. And they're low tier. But then you get like high tier characters who get pretty good damage after a parry. Like fucking um Dudley, I guess. I don't know. Fuck. Oro. Makoto. Good example. Um Get lots and lots of damage after a parry. And it's not consistent with the tier of the character. The parry, the biggest thing that makes a parry good or bad for certain characters compared to others does not um, matter that much in practicality, in application. And the only other argument I can make in his favor, which I'm about to shoot down, is that parries hurt because it makes the characters with good mix-ups the best characters, which it did, but that's not parry's fault. That's the mix-up's fault. That would be true in any fighting game. The characters with the best mix-ups are the best characters. Parry is safer than previous ways to break traps. Reversals, laying down, rolling. I don't even really know what he's saying by that one. Parry is safer than previous ways to break traps, I think. But I feel like that doesn't hurt. I feel like that helps. I feel like you do have to take a big risk to get out of a fireball trap if you're Bison versus Ryu. And that's bad because it's thoughtless for Ryu. He just does a consistent series of actions without making any sort of decisions and is rewarded for it. That's not strategic. That's the opposite of strategic. And you wouldn't have a setup like that in Third Strike because you can parry your way to freedom. We got some fucking, what do you call that? Ad hominem. I hate this shit. I hate when anyone does this. I hate that El Carpenter does it, and I hate that Viscant's doing it back. Well, El Carpenter didn't do it. He just fucking said that Viscant was doing it. Like, look at this. Wonder if you aren't understanding or just trying to be stupid, oh well. So they were playing SD, Blanca versus Vega. Here we go. I remember reading this years ago. Ironically, both these characters couldn't exist in Third Strike anyway. Oro is quite a lot like Vega. I cannot stress that enough. He, like, doesn't know that Oro's in the game. Both characters have charged meter. Blanca has a small lead, about 10%. There's 30 seconds left in the match. Let's say in this situation, Blanca walking forward. This is like, I remember reading this and thinking this was the most cherry-picked situation in the world. I don't think he's wrong. I think the situation is actually really complex. He convinced me the situation is really complex. But the problem is he doesn't know about complex situations in Third Strike. That's like the biggest place where this argument falls flat. He's saying that this game, he makes an argument that ST is more complex, and then all he does in response is create the exact same scenario in Third Strike and then say that it wouldn't work because there'd be a clear answer. It's like, that doesn't mean Third Strike's less complex. That doesn't mean it doesn't have complex situations. It just means that the engine makes your particular situation not complex. The way you would actually make a fair analogy is that you would take, like, you would see if there were any equally complex situations in Third Strike, but, like, you know, um, despite the fact that it's got a different engine. And there are, and I could talk at length about, like, the way Oro is supposed to fight Urian, which is my classic example because it's really complex and it's really fun. A lot of different options for both characters, and it's a lot of, like, ground control. It's a lot of layering. It's a lot of the things he loves talking about. Even though I don't think those things matter that much, it's like um, those things are like uh, present. And he would probably really like that matchup if he actually knew anything about it, which he probably doesn't. Blanca jumps forward or walks. I do super ease, about 80 to 20, going to eat it. Most of the 20 he's going to eat claw swipe. If he hops back, I do super to the far wall, break his charge, and he's about 85, 15 to eat the super, and again, most of the 15 he's going to eat the claw swipe. See, this is just, it always falls down to mix-ups. No matter how layered the situation is, he's going to take the most advantageous one to him, and then he's going to be random in his way of, like, you know, dodging the super. He's going to do his best to be the 20 and not the 80. If that's his best way out of it. If you do ball, I have a charge built up and will flip kick combo you. If he sits still, I can slide and push him back towards the corner. In which case, I'm going to corner guard him. He really has a shot at the match from this position since all my tick throws are now in play and his reversal Blanca ball becomes unsafe. See, it's like, there are a bunch of situations here, okay? I agree. There are a bunch of situations here. This Blanca is going to do the one that he thinks is the best for him, given the mix-ups, and then he's going to try and guess right on the mix-up. Even though that's a layered situation, it ultimately comes down to a fucking coin flip. And it's not a coin flip because it's not 50-50, but it's ultimately a guess. It's ultimately a mix-up. And he doesn't like, that situation, even though it's more layered, ultimately is just the same decision that's going on in Third Strike. And he doesn't want to acknowledge that that's the same decision. What could he have done in this situation to avoid a very bad position? I mean, the answer he's fishing for, I guess, is that the Blanca never should have been in that position in the first place. But, like, fucking, has he ever been blocking a Aegis Reflector in the corner? Has he ever been fighting a fucking Yun with an agent up? You have similar fucking odds stacked ridiculously against you, but you can also, like, avoid the situations that create those things. You can try and keep pressure on Yun so he doesn't get a safe Ganagine. You can try and fucking stay away from the corner. You can avoid headbutts that fucking make it so Urian can get mid-screen mirrors on you. That's layered. That's a layer. He thinks that setups don't exist in Third Strike, but they do. There are definitely situations where at a huge disadvantage. Has he fucking ever seen the character Dudley? Does he know about the little rose that he throws on you? That's the fucking very definition of a setup. That rose doesn't do anything. It just controls the opponent's position. Dudley wants to throw that rose, but he doesn't always have time. Once he gets the opportunity to throw that rose, he has a good mix-up that's in his favor. Dudley wants to put you in the positions where he has time to throw the rose. That's like fucking one of the more important character. Like that's one of the more. That's even just like a small part of Dudley's game. Dudley wants to get you into the corner, same as fucking any other character. He doesn't auto win based on getting you in the corner because the game is more fucking. It's better about that. That's a less strategic element of ST. Dudley wants you in the corner and he becomes more advantageous in the corner, but it's not a fucking just like guaranteed win. He just gets better combos. He just gets fucking better follow-ups to EX Machine Gun Blow and better follow-ups to Crouch Roundhouse. Street Fighter 4 followed the same formula because it was good. Ryu like becomes stronger in the corner, but he doesn't just auto win. He just gets better follow-ups for EX Tatsu. He gets better follow-ups for EX Fireball, and he controls your fucking position more. You lose the ability to jump back. You lose the ability to backdash. You lose the ability of all that. But it's not an auto win. It was dumb in SD when it was an auto win. No one can look at Cammy versus Old Sagat and say this is good. Granted, Cammy was a poorly designed character. But like Old Sagat does that to half the cast, which is why Old Sagat was the most played character in America. And he still does it to the characters who are like high tier. It's just that those characters have a mix up to get out. It's like fucking maybe Balrog can like low dash punch and counter hit a fireball. Maybe Balrog from certain ranges can headbutt through a fireball. It's like that's his mix up to escape that situation. And it just means characters that lose to a mix up instead of losing outright are better. Or I mean guess to a mix up instead of losing outright. I did a move jab roll to set up a scenario, many moves in advance, taking into account all factors including position, time, health meter. It's Dudley does this shit to a T. And Dudley's always done this shit. He can't even hide behind like people didn't know about Third Strike because Dudley did that from the very beginning. Dudley would like end combos with super or not, even though it wouldn't add that much damage and even though it would take meter away, just in order to have a hard knockdown, so he would have more Oki time. But he didn't necessarily need to do that to get a good Oki. He just needs to do that to do a great Oki. He could save the meter if he finds it's more useful to him. He could use the meter to get the hard knockdown. He could do a combo that doesn't even factor that meter. Third Strike has combos that like factor meter that ST doesn't, and that's like that's risk reward up, or not risk reward, but like that's multifaceted decision making. Use meter to create a advantageous position instead of just directly doing damage. That's fucking exactly what he's talking about. And that doesn't exist in SD pretty much. None of this becomes available. Yeah, see this? I hate this. In the situation with parry, none of this is available because Blanca could parry the low jab. Just fucking falls all apart because he attacks the... He makes a good argument and then attacks it from completely the wrong angle. He just tries to... He thinks the equivalent is fucking Blanca and Vega in both engines when comparing the two games. But that's not true at all. The equivalent is fucking the most complex situation in fucking... in Third Strike. I complain that this was an argument of cherry picking, but it's not even that. It's just a false equivalence. Like, imagine if you fucking... I don't know. What's like a really complex fighting game? Fuck, why the fuck not? CVS 2. It's like, oh, this wouldn't work in CVS 2 because Blanca can just defend. Because Blanca can activate a groove and then fucking get a punish. Some bullshit. I don't know. It's not like fucking that makes CVS 2 not complex. It just means that the situation can't be recreated in that game because fucking the engine is different. That specific situation is going to be exclusive to SD. That doesn't shoot down other games. I like how you compare consider third strike mind games deep when we've already established that they can go no further than I thought you were going to do this, and then I was surprised. Literally, like, he doesn't realize that's what's still happening. The Blanca, in his fucking theoretical scenario, will do one of these options. Let's say the 80-20. Will do that option in order to be the 20 because that's his best odds. And then he'll think that fucking Vega will do the timing that, like, does one thing. Let's say he guesses right. Let's say he's the 20. If there's a probability, there's certainly guessing, okay? This is how it works. Let's say the Blanca happens to be the 20 and hits him out of the fucking super with like a nut ball or something like that, a hard Blanca ball. What does he say? What does Viscant say? Does he say, I thought you were going to do this, but I did that, but you did that and I was surprised? If he doesn't say that, then why the fuck did he allow himself to get hit by a hard Blanca ball? He made a decision based on what he thinks the opponent was going to do. The thing is, every single mix-up in every single fighting game comes down to this. And he just complains that it's overly simplified, but it's not that his games are immune to it. His games are actually, his ST is like more vulnerable to that. Because, again, the rounds are shorter. I shouldn't say the rounds are shorter, makes it. It's just the matches are decided by fewer mix-ups. Here's a guy who's saying something I agree with. Point taken to an extent, but the pedestal you're placing it on is ill-built. The sheer risk of a parry a lot of the time makes it smarter to fucking block, though the number of mid-level players who think they can try and parry everything is alarming. I agree with that 100%. Parry damage does not decide entire matches for a start. No 100% damage combos here. That's not true, but this was written 10 years ago, so people didn't know about Makoto yet. And for the most part it's true, so it doesn't really matter. As long as that's the case, the chance of fucking up is high. Fishing for random parries is risky and self-defeating. Please explain how attempting to parry is riskier than preview your avoidance option. Most of the time trying to parry is actually almost zero risk, especially when you buffer them into fast moves that combo to heavy damage like CBS2 Kemi Kyo Yamazaki Sagat. It's wrong that parries are almost zero risk. Parries can be zero risk in very specific situations, but that's not an error on the parrier, that's an error on the attacker. If I'm Oro and I push the opponent out to mid-range with a block string, my stand medium kick at the end of that block string is always going to be a high parry, and all of my lows are not, like, parryable, because they don't even hit. And I know better to hit than that stand medium kick. Like, I used to always hit it. I used to do block strings into, like, fucking, you know, just to push the opponent out, and then I found out that the block string will get shut down by a high parry. That was a zero-risk parry. And it was not the opponent being dumb for doing the parry. It was me being dumb for hitting the stand medium kick. And that situation dumbed me down a little bit. But would that be a mix-up situation in ST? No. It's not a mix-up situation in third... I mean, it is a mix-up situation, but it's heavily against me. But in ST, it's like fucking you poke, what's the mix-up at all? With Stammering House from like far away. Like, what does it do? It's like if they eat it, that's good, but why would they eat it? Maybe I counter hit something. Not that counter hits exist per se in ST. I've been at this for like I'm going through like posts that Expiratio is posting. Maybe like 30 minutes, probably not. I don't know. I'm just reading them. I find it interesting. SF is dead because you like parrying is an argument on the level of daddy drinks because you cry. I don't even know what's being said here. I don't know what this guy is saying at all. Street Fighter 4 heavily copies a lot of things about Third Strike. A lot of balancing decisions from Third Strike. It doesn't copy parries. It does not copy parries. But like the balancing layers that had parries in them were recreated without parries. I wonder how he feels about like low risk pressure in Street Fighter 4. Why does zero risk bad? Why does he like criticize zero risk here? Parry zero risk, that's bad. Fucking Vega Super was zero risk, or fucking 15, 20 risk, and that was good. That was ridiculously in your favor and you didn't mind. I mean, I know that line's a quote from someone else, but I don't know what the fuck is being said, so I don't know how he's going to respond to it. Fighting games were not dead because fans were unable to differentiate the different level of mind games. Fighting games were dead because fucking the rich got rich and the poor got poor. There are a million reasons fighting games were dead. Why buy a Ferrari if you're only going to drive to the market for milk? In your case, you're completely denying a car can go over 15 miles per hour. So your Geo Metro is good enough. You like your Geo all you like, just don't claim that it can match the Ferrari in performance when anyone can, with a brain can see the inferiorities. Maintenance for a Ferrari is a lot worse. A Geo can be better than a Ferrari in specific scenarios. A Ferrari can be better than a fucking Geo in scenarios. He could have just as easily made the argument that fucking Third Strike was the Ferrari and ST was the Geo Metro and had just as strong an argument because the argument literally doesn't actually say anything. He's literally just likening like a good game to a fast car, to an analogy where a Ferrari is just better. Like that's the assumption you have to take when using this analogy. That's the assumption he's taking. But that assumption is an assumption. A Ferrari is not necessarily just better. I wouldn't want to own a Ferrari. I wouldn't want those insurance payments. I'm supposed to believe this analogy literally because of my already preconceived notions of cars. This is, I wouldn't say he's a well-respected, but he is a well-known person in the FGC. I'm not saying he's not respected either, although maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the fucking opinion is. He is a pretty smart guy. But, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with any of this. I've never agreed with any of this. I've read it multiple times. I feel like he formed a bunch of opinions, and I feel like if he had my experience in Third Strike, he would maybe reconsider. I do think he's biased. I don't think he has a good understanding because he leaves out a million examples. I feel like I brought up like every single Third Strike character by name in talking about this. Like shit. This is 10 years old. This is old as shit. This is before like high level Third Strike was. I mean, high level Third Strike took place pretty quickly within the first 2 years, but the game changed. It evolved quite a lot as it lived. There was and is a strong perception that high level Third Strike is terrible. I've never agreed with that perception, but I can see. I can't even see why people think it. I just know that people think it. I think high level Third Strike is fun as fuck. The people who complain about high level Third Strike often say they don't like it because it's ridiculously stalemate, encourages passive play rather than aggressive play. I'm glad that this is so old that I don't actually have to respond to it because I would actually type out like a really fucking long response to this. I get the argument that there's no OG Sagat or Dalsum style of character, but IMO, thank God. That's my opinion. So you're saying there are more character types, yet you freely admit the 2D archetypes aren't in, you provide no substitutes for these. They were dumb. Let's say I have a character where there's a blue button and a red button, and if I hit the blue button, I win 50% of the time, and if I hit the red button, I win the other 50% of the time. And if I guess wrong, I just immediately lose. It's like that character doesn't exist. If it did, if like fucking, let's say there's a new fighting game where fucking that character, like, I don't know, say there's another character in that in a new fighting game that fucking prevents that from working somehow. Character locks your buttons with a super, I don't know, fuck, and then just beats you up while you can't hit any buttons. That wasn't a character worth maintaining. Coin flip the character. I'm not saying that old Sagat. I mean, I do hate old Sagat and Dalsim. They were really awful characters. Dalsim had really, really long reach that just shut down fucking most characters. And then he didn't have any weaknesses. It's like you might as well just say, I like playing a character that's really broken. I just like playing a character with a giant strength and no commensurate weakness. I just like a character where half the cast can't compete with that character. It's not like Third Strike didn't have a character with stretchy limbs. They had two. You had two separate stretchy limbed characters. It's just that those characters, it's just that stretchy limbs had weaknesses associated with it. And those weaknesses were stronger than the strengths. And Viscant apparently hated 12 and hated Necro. If you get on Dalsim, he's very kill. Not really. Not really at all. Like, yeah, he's better full screen, but it's not like Dalsim doesn't have like the biggest throw range in ST, and like dive kicks, and like quick normals. He has all those things. There's like no downside to Dalsim, which is why he's like the #1 character in the game. Dalsim is just like better. It's not that he just likes having those tools, it's like he likes that those tools are strong. But it wasn't good for the game that those tools were strong. They removed balance. The thing that he is ultimately complaining about. The lack of balance in Third Strike. The whole area where this argument just falls flat on its ass is that he's making an argument that ST is more balanced than Third Strike, where tournament results for both are ridiculously poor. You see you see like half the cast for both games in a tournament setting, and you see about a quarter of the cast winning tournaments for both games. And that's it. Like, results disagree with his argument. It's like, if he says that parries ruin balance, then what? Then Third Strike is a less balanced game than ST? It's not. He's like making half an argument, but he stops on the part where it matters. I mean, he is arguing that the ST is deeper while Third Strike is casual, but like, what makes Dalsim more deep than Necro? Literally that his tools work better. Necro also has a giant throw range, and in fact he has an entire corner mix-up involving throws because he actually gets really good damage in the corner. So he actually like really wants to corner you compared to most characters. This is Viscant. What's actually on screen right now? Oh, the name is cut off. That's Viscant on Shoryuken.com. Completely wrong, I would say. Increases tenfold. Now you have another option besides blocking your opponent. Can't abuse the same retarded shit. Tiger shot times 1,000. The simple traps you can see coming from a mile away but can't do anything about come to mind. I agree with this completely. In fact, I said something similar earlier on. By denying the importance piece of mind games positioning, you yourself put yourself in a position that you can't do anything about, and then claim that it's broken. But no character can do anything about it. Or rather, not that no character can, but like fucking... What does... Like, Cammy knows that if she's in the corner, she's dead. And what? What can she do to resist getting put into the corner? Nothing. You can see it a mile away and you can't do anything to prevent it. Sagat, just as easily as he takes like mix-ups, also takes position, which is why he ended up being a top-tier character. That's the whole point. Sagat proved himself to be the guy where you can see it coming a mile away, but you can't prevent it. No one can prevent it, or else Sagat wouldn't be a top-tier character. The end. It's like, oh my god, because I let Sagat get the position, like he won, it was completely my fault that I let Sagat get the position. But also Sagat literally gets the position when used by everyone against everyone. Okay. It is broken. It's broken by results. He says parries are safer because if the window to whiff punish a parry is smaller. But that's not really true. Yeah, parries, the reward is better than the risk for parries, which is why people go for parries at all. Okay? Let me first say that. Parries are worth going for. That's not wrong. But he argues that parries carry no risk, which is not true at all. It's not like fucking, look at this. You tap down forward, and if they choose to defeat your guest by doing nothing, you lose nothing. What if they do something else? What if they do a low slash high to your forward slash down? What if they do whatever the opposite of what you did was? What if they throw you? What if they wait for your parry to resolve in which you're in parry lock and then hit you out of it? That happens all the fucking time. Literally all the fucking time. You know what I do? I empty jump into stand strong. I just jump in. They do anti-air parry into like a button like stand fierce or something like that. Like, I don't know, low forward, something, anything. Crouch fierce. And then they didn't get the parry, but they don't have time to react, and I hit the startup of their move after the parry. And there's a mix-up interlaid with that, where you can either go for like parry into throw, which carries less risk than parry into normal, or even parry into block, which carries even less risk, but also takes away the reward. That's layered. You're wondering whether the parry's even going to work at all, and then all of a sudden, like, you have to know about what you're going to do after the parry. I'm going to go back to watching Street Fighter 4. He said he was leaving the thread after that post. There were probably more posts I could have dug through.